review, I just want to revisit area really quick because there are a few little tricky things that you might see on your test. Overall, y'all have done fantastic at this concept and topic. So I just wanted to review really quick and then throw a couple more things in there just so that you've seen them and can process them a little bit. All right, so we know for area, after area we went to triangle, angles and such, and then we went to volume. All right, so let's go back to area for a second. We've been doing area by finding the area of the base in volume, but to find the area of a 2D shape, if it's a rectangle or a parallelogram, because a parallelogram is just a rectangle tilted, you do the base times the height. All right, and we've changed our vocab from 5th grade so that you're thinking of the base, whatever's resting on the bottom, usually, times the height, okay? Whatever is attached to that 90-degree angle. In that case, it would be these two, all right? And with our parallelogram, that means we would completely ignore this, like, slanted side, and you would just pay attention to these two lines, okay? Because they're on the right angle. All right. So to find the area of a square or rectangle, we knew that you just do length times width, or in 6th grade, base times height. So we knew the area for this would equal what? 5 times 4 is 20, okay? All right, we added a parallelogram in 6th grade. Because it's the same thing as a rectangle but slanted, it has the exact same equation. So our base is our 6, all right? And then our height is this 2, all right? So what is 6 times 2? That would be 12. So the area of this parallelogram would be 12. All right, rectangles, parallelograms, base times height. It gets a tiny bit trickier when you move to the other shapes, because these shapes are made of these up here. Okay, so that adds a couple steps. Or made from. You could say that their formula is altered from your rectangle and your parallelogram formula. And let me show you what I mean. All right, we know that to find the area of a square or a rectangle, you can do base times height. Another thing you might see is for a square, all 4 sides equal the same thing. So if I said that this side has a side length of 4, and this is a square, you can assume that not just the side across, but all of the other sides are also 4, okay? So when you're finding the area, instead of base times height, you might also see it as a side times a side, because you're still just going to multiply base times height, but that's really just sides because they're the same value. You might see S as if it has to do with squares. Remember, area is still multiplying the two. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, because we're going from area equals base times height for a square, to find a triangle, to make a triangle out of that square, I need to cut it in half, okay? If I cut this square in half, I now have a triangle, okay? That's why we say that the area of triangles, okay, is base times height divided, base times height divided by 2, because to find the area of this triangle, you would do base times height, find the full square rectangle, and then cut it in half to find just a triangle piece, okay? Just in case you were confused. All right, so we know triangles are same, base times height, but we cut them in half. So you'll either see that as over 2 or divided by 2, or area equals half of the base times height. Okay, these are the same thing. Multiplying a number by the reciprocal is the same as dividing by that number. Okay, so if we go plug this in, I'm going to go find my right angle. Okay, it branches off of these 2 lines here. So I know that my base is going to be 10, all right, along the bottom. And my height is going to be 4 going up and down off my right angle. And if I just stop there, I have found a rectangle area. I need to cut that in half to get my triangle. All right. And your formula chart will be available to you always, even on STAR. There's that little button that you probably saw today. It'll show you this formula, half of your base times height. Okay. It's the same as cutting it in half or dividing it by 2 at the end. They're the same thing. All right. So 10 times 4 is going to give us 40 over 2. And I recommend rewriting your formula because I have a lot of people who've plugged it in, multiplied, and then stopped. They've been like, phew, did it, it's 40. No, remember that's if this was a rectangle, you need to cut it in half for a triangle. So remember, for triangles, it's going to be a 2-step problem, multiply and divide. Okay, so 40 divided by 2 is going to be 20. So the area of this triangle is 20. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Now let's talk about our trapezoids. So if we get triangles by cutting the formula for a rectangle or a square in half, how are trapezoids connected to parallelograms? Well, let me show you. Okay. Parallelogram is a little tilted rectangle. And if I take my trapezoid, yay, beautifully folded origami trapezoid from Miss Dyson, and I cut it, oh, I hope I cut this in the right half, okay? I cut it in half and slide my pieces together, okay? If I were to glue them together, now I have a parallelogram. My top and bottom are the same length, but offset, and they're just slanted to meet them, okay? So I made my trapezoid into a parallelogram, okay, by cutting it in half. All right, so let's talk about how that works. So we have the formula from your reference chart, but we're going to talk about how it's put together while we do it. So the one on your reference chart says half, so they've already cut it in half. All right. Your base 1 plus your base 2, okay, so you see how we had our original base and our second base, we had our top and our bottom, and now when I've lined them up, I have to add them together to get the full length, okay, so I have my base plus my base, all right, and then times the height, and the height is still the right angle, okay, so if we're using this picture, it would still be connecting this corner to this base down here with a right angle. And that's why it has to be cut in half. Our bases, all right, are the same. We add them together. But our height, when it's like this, is double what it's going to be when we cut it, all right? So we have our bases added together times the height, and then we cut the whole thing in half. That's how we were able to slide it like this to make it a parallelogram. All right, I hope that helps clear up some things. Let me put my trapezoid back together. Have I been calling this the wrong name? I don't know. Okay. How we've been writing it is your area equals your base 1 plus base 2 times height, and then divided by 2, because we want you to do your bases times your height and then cut it in half. These are the exact same thing like I just talked about over here. Okay. Whenever you fill in your formula, you're going to have some questions where you're going to have to pick the plugged in formula and not always solve. So sometimes you have to solve, sometimes you just have to plug it in. So we might write this as your 4 plus 9 times, remember your height is always the one that runs into your right angle. So we're messing with sorry, 6 and 9, and not even messing with our 7. Okay, oh, sorry. And that right angle goes all the way up to the top, and it continues on that side. All right, so our 2 bases. Okay, and then times our height, which is that middle piece, our 6, and then we'll cut it in half. Okay, but remember, your reference chart has this top formula. It's the same thing, but because your reference chart uses this, you might see it written differently. Okay, you might see it written as 1/2, Okay, base 1 plus base 2 times height. Okay, and you're going to have to decide, remember, always you're going to have to think, is my height this one, my 6, or is it my slanted, my 7 times 6? Okay, and these are the exact same thing. Just know you will see it in different forms, and you can use whichever one to solve as long as you know what it means. All right, so let's go ahead and solve. So my 4 plus 9 is going to give us 13, okay? And then we still have 6 as our height to multiply and then divide by 2. All right, 13 times 6 is 78. And then we still have to divide by 2. All right, 78 divided by 2 gives me 39. All right, so the area of this trapezoid would be, I'm so sorry, I cut off part of that, would be 39. Okay, and so to put it together, these are both one step, base times height. You multiply one time. All right, moving down, the area of a triangle, triangles took 2 steps, multiply, divide. 1 step, 2 step, carrying on the pattern. Our trapezoid has us add, then multiply, then divide. Okay, that took 3 steps. So when you're solving triangles and trapezoids, if you're done super fast, I want you to go back and think, did I do all steps? Because they have more than one. All right, and I can't emphasize enough how many people, especially on today's practice, solved half of a problem and forgot the last half of the step. Okay? All right, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask.